Okay, in this section we are going to attempt to try to catch the Treeview event type. We're going to take the event type and catch its event ID, such as tree expand, tree clicked, right click, and so on like that. We've also got to go and get the geo area descriptions, and we also need to make sure that when we change or select a different list sequence in the combo box here, that the tree view actually changes accordingly. So as you might expect, I've been doing some VB scripting. I'll just walk you through that. There's been very little change at the top, but just notice I have turned this constant to true because I am controlling a series of message boxes lower down, which we'll have a look at earlier on. No change to the on initialization function, but there have been a few changes with the on user event. First change is to make sure that I pick up the list by value, irrespective of what the events are. I need that everywhere. There have been a little bit of change here. The message box has gone, so when the combo box changes or our list by combo box changes, the first thing to do is we clear the current tree view. If we don't do that, if we just add stuff, it'll just add to the bottom of it, and you get that here in this call out down here. Click on that, you can see that it detects the tree view. And then we have a generic function where I'm passing the alphabetical list and the list by into it, in which case, irrespective of what we change, everything will pop into this starting function. A little bit lower down on the initialization, here we are trapping our tree view event in our event type. We have our select case trapping the event ID. We're looking for tree expand, tree clicked, and tree right clicked. At the moment, I'm just bobbing up a message box, which is controlled by that show messages. If it's set to false, these won't occur. And at this stage, what I like to do is just bang a couple of comment lines in to remind me what I've got to do when I get here. So as an example, when the tree expand event occurs, I need to go and get a list of customers, and I need to add them to the list in the tree view. When I click on an item in the tree view, I only want to process the click if it's a customer node. When it is clicked, I need to go and get the customer details. We'll extract the data and put it into a scripting dictionary, as we did in the Getting Started course, and then we'll populate the XAML form pane. And then finally, on the right click, again, only process it if it's a customer name. We're right clicking. I want to show a context menu, and I want to give the user the option of loading the full-blown customer query ARSPEN. So let's have a little bit look at the changes in the populate function. When we select the geographic area, we'll get the enumerated G back. The first thing I want it to do is go and get the list of geographic areas, and when it does that, it'll give me the response back in this variable here. Check that we have got a response. We'll take that variable and we'll pass it to this function, which will build our tree view XML, pop it into this variable, and then we will pop it into the tree view by our tree add item, remembering that we've just cleared the tree view higher up. It's just everybody has their own style of writing, but if you're new to VB scripting, this is something I like to do. Write short, sharp functions that give an answer, take that answer, put it in as a variable to another short, sharp function, get that answer, put it in a variable, and pass it on. Don't write huge monolithic pieces of code. They're very difficult to debug. Now, before we go charging off looking at how to go and get the geo area, I want to take a slight detour and talk to you about how we're going to do that. In the next section, what we're going to be doing is going to get the geographical area descriptions from the database, and to do that I'm going to use the COM-FND business object, and I thought it might be useful just to discuss the business object and how we can get some of the details we need for it. COM-FND really mimics or emulates the SQL select statement. So we give it a table name, some column names, where clause, order by clause, present it to Syspro. Syspro will do the query and return the data to us in an XML document. So if we have a look at this as an example, what we've got is we pass the business object with XML parameters. So there's our table name, optional number of rows to return, some columns, our order by statement. This is equivalent to this SQL statement here, and it will return this XML out. So there's a header detail with the original query, and then you can see that each row of data with the columns in it are bound by row and n row elements. So you could imagine, for instance, loading this into the DOM, picking up a node list of all the rows, and then iterating over all the rows and doing something about it, which is great. But I think that one of the problems that people coming to Syspro have is you might look at it and say, well, that's all very well and good, but how on earth did you find the table name and the column names? So we have a quick look. What I did was because I was looking for the geographical area table, I loaded geographical area maintenance program. And in any program in Syspro, if you press Shift and F7, you will end up with a systems information screen popping up, which is really quite useful support, and it's got all sorts of information about the current configuration. But tucked away at the top here, if you go view current users, it pops up another screen of users. And okay, in this example, it's just got my one single user in, but you'd end up with a great long list of all the users in on your system. And if you click Who Am I, which is here, it'll highlight the user. And the trick here is to check this Show Detail. And if you press that, you'll get a list of all the programs that user is currently running. And if I highlight the geographical area maintenance one here, you'll see over here, it gives me a list of all the files used. And lo and behold, that's the one we're after, SAL area. Okay, so that's the first step. So it's a little bit of detective work required to go and find the table name. Now we've got the table name, the next step is to go and find the columns. Hidden away in the utilities section on the main menu is a data dictionary viewer. And when you load it, it gives you a great long list of all the tables used in Syspro. And if we pick SAL area and we click on the little arrow that's on the end of that column, click on properties, we'll get this screen here. And here we've got the column names. So we have area, which is the geographical area key, and the description, which is what we want. So that's how I managed to work out the SAL area table name and the column names. As I say, a little bit of detective work, but that's the end of our detour, and we'll go back and we'll go and find out how we use ComFND in my code. Okay, so we're back from our little detour and we're back in our code. If you remember, we were just talking about the geographic area option here, and I just want to take you through some of the two functions: list geo areas, which will get us the list of geographic areas from the table, and then what we do with the answer. So the list geo areas calls the ComFND, so there's our parameter file, and there's the call to ComFND. The response will come back here, and then we're just pressing to check that we've got everything all right. Just a heads up for those of you who may have forgotten or overlooked it in the Getting Started course, it's always useful to run the XML coming back from a business object through something like Syspro check for errors. What this will do is look for any elements called error descriptions, such as customer not on file or things like that, which clearly the business object has returned well-formed XML, but you still need to know whether the errors are there. So this will look for them all, return a list of them in a string, and you can check them from there. And this is something I quite like to do when I'm messing around with business objects, is have an option to write out the XML that I'm giving it to it and its response. If there are any errors, you can open these files, and copy the content into the e.net diagnostics tool that is provided by Syspro and check where you've got the mistakes. It's quite a useful way. And then if we get through all this, we take the XML out and we will return it back to the calling function. So we go back up here. We now take our XML and we pass it into build geo areas. And we just nip down to this little bit here. First thing we do is load it into the DOM. You shouldn't have any problems, but we still do error checking. We will create a node list by looking for all the rows. Just do a little bit of checking that there are some rows, because if there aren't, then we need some sort of error trapping. And then what we're doing here is we start, remember we're building the very initial part of the tree view. So we have a parent, which we're going to call geo areas, and then we're going to iterate over the node list for each node in the node list, and we're going to build the item element that we actually want. Once we finish with it, there's an option to write it out there. Then we will return it back to the calling function. And then if we nip back up here, we take that and we present that to the tree add item. So relatively straightforward, and you can see small, sharp functions doing one thing with loads of diagnostics which we can turn on and off. Okay, so with that in mind, let's just go and see and run our app and see what we've got going. Okay, so here we are. We've fired up our onInitialize event will have fired, and there's our initial list here. Now, if we've got everything right, if we click on expand one of these, we expect an expand event. But notice, quite interesting, we've actually got a tree clicked event on the customer list. Now, this is quite interesting because, you know, hang on a minute, I wasn't expecting that. But of course, it's fired a tree click because, of course, the tree view has just gained focus. It didn't have it before. And then what we will find is we get the tree expand afterwards. So we just make a mental note of that, because we might have to deal with that in our code, because we want things to happen on the tree expand and a tree clicked and so on. But once we've done that, of course, we would expect a tree expand each time. And this is the value that I'm building in the element name. There's the node 3, and it doesn't have any children. So this is doing exactly what we would have expected. If we click on an item, we're getting a tree clicked, and again, we're getting the value back, the node and so on like that. And if we right click on an item, we're now getting a tree right clicked. Okay, so that's, now you can see why I put the message boxes in, is so that I begin to understand what's going on. And fingers crossed, if we've got the geo area bit working, there they are. And again, we've got the same thing going on here. See, geo E, geo N, these are the keys, the geographic area keys and so on like that. One thing that is worth noting, it doesn't always, it sort of skips my mind, is as I hover over geo areas, can you see in the right hand corner here, there's something called options. And if you click on this, you get a load of options associated with the list view. You can change colors and things, but it's quite useful to sort of think like collapse all, and then you can start expanding them and so on like that. So we're actually in quite a good place now. We've got our list view working. We've got our alphabetical list and our geo areas working. So the next step has to be do something when we click on here, which is to go and get the customer names and add them to the node. Okay,